A new school year is upon us, and so I thought we'd take this opportunity to talk about how I go about planning my homeschooled teens' days. And I have a confession. I don't. I'm sorry, but I don't. Welcome, I'm Tricia, and my youngest is starting high school this year. And as I look back over the last 15 years, I really think we've tried just about every kind of scheduling trick, hack, method there is. And what started as an unintentional scheduling method, I guess, for my oldest when she started 9th grade, mostly because I was floundering that year, at the beginning of it, turned into something that was much more intentional as her high school years went on, and then as my boys approached high school. So let's talk about why I don't plan their days and what I do instead. Now, one of my guiding parenting philosophies, I guess you would say, is that I'm not raising kids, I'm raising adults. And that while that applies to a lot of ways that I focus my parenting decisions, one of those ways is with time. Because adults need to know how to plan their times and manage their time. And when kids leave your high school, whether they're going to college or to a job, they are not going to get a list of everything that needs to be done each day and what time they need to do things and what they should be doing today in order to prepare for tomorrow, etc. And this was an area that I, for one, struggled with. I don't know about you, but it was a huge jump for me, both when I went to college and then when we graduated, started working, got married, etc. No. Teens are going to mess up when they're managing their schedules, right? They just are. They're going to leave home too late. They aren't going to leave enough time to complete that paper that's due. The outfit that they have to wear tonight is going to be in the wash when they need to leave in 10 minutes. It's going to happen. But if it can happen under my roof, while I'm there to guide them and help them not make mistakes or help let them make mistakes and learn, that's great because I can help them to do better. Now, practically in our homeschool, that can look things like I give them their book list for history for the year, and they need to figure out when to request them from the library so that they can get here on time. It can mean that I hand over a few lessons for math and they figure out when to get it done. It can look like giving them a project and letting them backtrack it or playing backwards to set deadlines and then going over it with them to see if that's going to be realistic or not. And not for nothing, but I am so tired of scheduling everything. I've been at this parenting thing for almost 20 years. Elizabeth's just about to turn 20. And I'm tired of it. So if I can hand off some things and let other people do some organizing of all of it, can I get a hallelujah? Amen. Now, as I mentioned, all of this came about rather unintentionally with Elizabeth. I wasn't prepared for how much she was going to need me in 9th grade. It was a big transition and I wasn't prepared for that. And so I was floundering. And so I just started handing her things that she could figure out. And then we went from there. But as I did this, I started seeing some of the payoffs of like, she was better prepared for when we needed to leave without me having to remind her for activities and making sure she had everything for activities. And her math lessons were getting done completely without me. She had an online math class for it and it was just all getting done. Her responsibility was increasing. Her awareness of what needed to happen was also increasing. Let me pause right here for a moment and say this. My kids and I are all neurodivergent in different ways. 3 of us have ADD. Time management is not something that comes naturally to any of us. Time blindness is a very real thing in our home, and all of that makes all of this even more challenging for us. But And maybe especially so if you have kids who time management doesn't come easy for them, or it doesn't come easy for you to model. This is even more important that you are intentional about it. My parents weren't intentional about it, and I don't blame them. They had their own things going on, and it was a different time with parenting. But it was really hard for me because I wasn't taught how to do this and think through all of it. So on the topic of how I actually go about doing this, 2 things first. 1, this is going to be a process, a slow one, a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back process, and that's okay. And it's going to look different with each of your kiddos, and that is fine too. And I know you know that, but I also know that sometimes I need to be reminded that what worked for one kid may not work for another, and that doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means they're different kids. Secondly, I don't care for most subjects if my kids do all of their science in one day, or a week's worth of science in one day, instead of doing it every day. Same for history or writing. My one exception, though, is math. I firmly believe that math should be like lifting weights or exercising, something you do every day, slowly and surely, but you see progress over time. You build the muscles over time. Now, I don't have like a clear-cut process for this because it varies with my kids. But here's what I want, or here's what I do. The first thing I'm going to look at, and I try to start this in middle school gradually, but especially 9th grade, is that I look at what subjects they're doing this year or this semester and see which ones are easy to hand off. Meaning, there are clear-cut lessons, there are clear-cut stops and starts. It's pretty clear what needs to happen each day because I want them to have success. And if we can build on the foundation of here's something easy and now you've mastered it, so adding in this next thing that's a little harder isn't going to be so difficult. Math for Ben, in the past, he's used Mr. D's, and it's pretty clear. 1 lesson a day is usually what he did. Some lessons, if they went long, he would take over to a second day. But generally speaking, 1 lesson a day. On the other hand, Matthew this year is doing a geometry through Math Without Borders. And it's a project-based-ish, discovery-ish type of approach. And there is no clear start and stop points for each lesson. So while math was an easy one for me to hand off to Ben, and it was easy to hand off to Elizabeth because she had clear assignments from her outside teacher, it is not an easy one for me to hand off with Matthew. Right now, we're still just trying to figure out about what it's going to take each day, and I've set a time, but not lessons. And that's fine, but it does mean that I can't hand it off to him. On the other hand, his health class that he's taking through our co-op, that's an easy one for me to hand off. Again, there are clear lessons. The assignments are coming from another teacher. So it's easy just to say, okay, you can manage this one. You figure out how to plan it for the week. So as I make these choices about which one's going to be the easiest one to start with, and I do like to start with 1 subject, I can hand it over, and maybe a couple of days worth, or it may be a week's worth, depending on the kiddo. By midweek, those first few weeks of doing this, I do a check-in and see how things are going. Do we need to make adjustments? Is it going well? And then we proceed. And as they make progress with this, and we both feel that they're ready to take on another subject, I hand off another easier subject. And then another one. Maybe somewhere along there, maybe the 3rd one, I hand off one that's a little more difficult, knowing that it may take longer to adjust to it. But again, we're building those pieces and helping them think it through so that they can have that success. As for how I know when to hand off another one, there's not a clear answer. My guideline is when things are reasonably getting done, reasonably on time. Meaning that most weeks, everything's crossed off. Most weeks, We don't have to move more than 1 or 2 assignments to the next week, etc. And when they're confident, that's a big part of all of this, is building their confidence that they can handle more. Now, simultaneously, while you're doing this, if you have not started handing off this kind of thing for kids in their outside activities, this is a great time to start doing that. Some kids will naturally pick up on what time they need to leave for practice and this kind of thing. But why? Why do I choose that we are leaving 3:45 for a 4:30 soccer practice? I know, but does my kid? So when I purposefully think this through and talk it through, I'm helping them to learn how to think it through for themselves. Because it's really easy when kids say, oh, I want to do this activity and it starts at 4:30 and this one starts at 6 and I can do it both. Well, maybe, but how long is your first activity? And what's the travel time between them? When are you going to eat dinner? Kids see the possibilities and everything, but learning to think through what it actually means to schedule these things is different. So sitting down with a hourly calendar with your kids each beginning of the school year or as seasons shift in your home, sit down with them and think through their activities. Put down soccer practice 4:30 to 5:30. Now, let's account for travel time and getting ready time. And block off that whole thing. Not just the activity time, but all the prep and travel time that goes too. Put in your subjects. That doesn't necessarily mean that math always has to happen at 9 in the morning and chores are done at 2:30. But putting it on there helps kids see how everything fits together. Moms, have you done this to your own schedules recently? Have you really put down all of that? When you do, you might understand why you feel frazzled some days, because some days there's just not enough time to get everything done that we think we can get done. So when we teach our kids with purpose how to plan and manage their time and think it all through, we're helping them to have a good foundation to find success in adulthood, whatever that looks like for each kiddo. Thanks for watching.